Welcome to Accelerate My Practice. So glad you could join me here today. Today I want to talk about the cost of distraction. You know, the last few weeks we talked about a few different things. 2 weeks ago we talked about culture. I guess it was 3 weeks ago because of the holiday. But we talked about the company culture. Is your company, is your organization all have the same vision, all moving the same direction? Then we talked about consistent growth. How do we develop a culture of consistent growth? And one of the challenges that gets in the way of consistent growth is distraction. So many distractions, whether personal, professional, life, elections, what's on TV last week, the Super Bowl, sports, your Packers, my Packers, I don't know what your team is. But whatever the case is, your favorite sports team, what happened over the weekend, all these things can cause distractions. And in some ways, these distractions are fun. You know, it gives us the ability to sit down and talk and have a conversation and creates community. But in other ways, it becomes a distraction from what our core job, our core responsibility is. And so I want to use a metaphor of this. I want to use the metaphor of distracted driving. And I want to play a short video for you that talks about why we get so excited about what's going on, whether it's distracted driving or distracted living. And I think you'll find this sort of interesting and powerful. We'll watch this. It's very, very short, and we'll come right back.
So I just confess that I text and drive. If I get a text, I'll look at my phone.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Snapchat. I do Snapchat and drive sometimes. Because what if something exciting's happening or something happened?
So you hear these people talking about, ooh, I Snapchat. I mean, some of you don't even know what Snapchat is. Most of you doctors are probably like, what's that? Is that chatting, texting, and It's how distracted we've become. And the challenge is when you're talking to your patients, how distracted are your patients? You're sitting there chatting, and most of you have heard me use this metaphor before, where I ask you, do you believe your patients are clinically deaf? And most everyone goes, well, what do you mean? Have you told a patient something they need, they come back 6 months later, you tell them again, and they go, you've never told me that. And you're looking, of course, in your chart going, yep, sure have. In fact, I've told you 3 times. And they're so distracted, maybe by anxiety, maybe by life, maybe by grocery shopping, who knows what by, that they don't even hear and comprehend what it is you're saying. So the challenge in life in general is how many of us go through life so distracted that we're not even present. I've been guilty of that. I know I have, because my wife hands me my caboose every now and then about it. Usually when I'm guilty of it, we're sitting there at the dinner table, my phone's blowing up with something, and I'm sitting there responding to it. And my wife's like, hey, dude, right here, put the phone away. Which is a good reminder for me to put the phone away and spend time with my kids. How many of us know somebody who went through life and then all of a sudden woke up one day and went, where? My kids moved out. I don't even remember when they were 5, when they were 6, when they got their first bike. I can't remember stuff. I have those thoughts. I have those thoughts where I'm looking at my middle child, Colton, and I'm wondering, man, I barely remember his 2nd birthday. Thankfully, I do a lot of video. I went and saw videos of his 2nd birthday the other day, and I was like, oh, cool, check this out. But without those videos, I wouldn't have them. Now, why don't I remember them? Probably because I was distracted. I was probably sitting there at the birthday party thinking about some client, thinking about some employee, thinking about some person, and not thinking about my kid's birthday party. How many of us have woken up at some point in our lives going, man, what happened? What happened that I missed all this time, that I missed all this stuff? What happened in your job when all of a sudden one day you woke up and you didn't have one? Maybe you lost a job at one point because you were so distracted with life that you weren't doing your job as well as you could have. And now you're sitting here again, watching me babble, semi-distracted by your phone. I know one of you watching right now is looking at your phone. And you're distracted as I'm talking about distractions. You know, about a month or 2 ago, I talked about what the average attention span of a human being is, and I think it was about 6 seconds. The goldfish had the average attention span of 8. You know, that's the challenge in life. We've become so fast-paced that we can't focus on anything. We can't sit there and stay engaged in our job. You know, if I'm an assistant, I'm sitting there, you know, doing what I'm supposed to be doing and assisting, and all of a sudden I just kind of zone out and, wait, what happened? And it doesn't look good. Now I realize here's the challenge, right? We all have life. We all have life that's happening to us. And we have distractions in our lives, marital problems, financial problems, health problems, family problems, all kinds of problems. And those are all legitimate distractions. Those are all real. Those are all real things that, with good reason, pull us away from wherever we're at. The challenge is, some of those problems were caused by distractions. So thinking about your office and coming into your office, and maybe I'm someone who works in the front office, maybe I'm an office manager, and I'm coming in distracted, and I give 80%. So in an 8-hour day, I give roughly 6 hours. The other 2 hours, I'm a bit distracted. Think of how many hours that is a year, where I'm not doing a great job. And then at the end of the year, I'm like, hey, how come I didn't get a raise? Wow. Well, if 20% of the time you weren't focused and doing a good job, maybe you should get a 20% pay cut. I'm not trying to be mean, but come on, let's think about this. You're being paid 100% of your salary. Should you not give 100% of your time and focus for that 100% of your income? Imagine if they changed the pay scale to where you were paid for your level of engagement. Wouldn't that be interesting? Now, I'm sure there's a few of you sitting there thinking, I'm not liking this episode right now. Well, I want to be an equal opportunity person. So now I'll talk to the doctors. So how many of you at times as leaders are distracted and not leading effectively, just going through the motions, just kind of showing up at work? And then you're upset at your team that they're not engaged in doing what they're supposed to be doing. Perhaps it's costing you a fortune too. Perhaps it's something that is costing the practice your own personal profitability. Because let's face it, who's the last person to get paid? The owner. So if I'm coming in as the owner, distracted 20% of the time, and my company performs 20% lower as a result of it, how much does that affect me personally, financially? A lot. If you've got 80% overhead, just as a round number, so there's only 20% net on the practice, but 20% of the time you were distracted, man, that almost impacted your income 100%. What does distraction cost you? I can't do anything about the distraction of other people. The only thing I can do is about the distraction of myself. It's the only thing I can control. How am I going to show up today in the office, in my relationships, in my friendships, all around? The only thing I can control is me. I can try and spread a message to others. I can try and influence others, but I can't control them. My hope for you is that moving forward from this day on, you won't live a distracted life. You'll live a wholehearted, engaged, fully engaged life, one where you get to have more meaning than you've ever had before. I believe if you do, it'll be more fulfilling and you'll enjoy it a lot more. So with that, I'll sign off for the day. I look forward to seeing you next week. Live life to the fullest.